Before the headlines, before the documentaries, before the horror stories, there was just a quiet man, living an ordinary life. His name was Jeffrey Dahmer, and almost no one noticed him. He was born in 1960 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A shy child, socially isolated, often alone, struggling to fit in. His parents later said he seemed distant, withdrawn, lost in his own world. Even as a teenager, he avoided people and preferred isolation. But there were early signs that something was wrong. As a young boy, Dahmer became obsessed with dead animals. He collected bones, preserved remains, studied them, not out of cruelty, but curiosity. At least, that's what it seemed. Psychologists later explained, this behavior can sometimes indicate emotional detachment, difficulty forming human connections. But at the time, no one saw it as dangerous. In high school, he began drinking heavily. Even during class, he struggled with depression and identity and loneliness. Despite this, he graduated and joined the U.S. Army for a short time, but he failed. He couldn't adapt. He was discharged early and returned home, still lost, still isolated. By the late 1970s, he was living alone, working simple jobs, staying quiet, keeping to himself. To neighbors, he looked harmless, invisible. But in 1978, everything changed. A young man named Stephen Hicks met Dahmer. They spent time together, drinking, talking. Then Hicks disappeared. Years later, investigators confirmed this was Dahmer's first murder. He was only 18 years old. And no one knew. No arrest. No report. No investigation. Nothing. Life continued. Dahmer moved, changed jobs, blended in, and the world forgot. But inside, something had begun. Something dark. Something dangerous. Something that would grow for more than a decade. If you care about real stories, subscribe to True Tales USA. Because truth matters. Over the next years, Dahmer would be arrested, questioned, released more than once. And each time, the warning signs were missed. By the early 1980s, Jeffrey Dahmer was still invisible. No one knew his secret. No one suspected his past. To the world, he was just another quiet man. In 1981, he returned to Milwaukee, living with relatives, working small jobs, drinking heavily, spending most nights alone. But inside, his dark urges were growing stronger, more intense, more dangerous. In 1988, Dahmer met a 13-year-old boy. He invited him to his home, promised him money, promised him photos. It seemed harmless at first. But inside the apartment, Dahmer attacked him. He drugged the boy, assaulted him, and took pictures. The boy survived. He escaped and reported everything to the police. For the first time, Dahmer was arrested, charged, taken to court. Investigators found photos, evidence, clear proof. This was serious. Very serious. In 1989, the judge sentenced him 1 year in prison, with work release and probation. Many experts later said this was a turning point, a moment where everything could have changed. In prison, Dahmer behaved well. He stayed quiet, followed rules, avoided trouble. After 10 months, he was released early. Back into society. Back into freedom. Back into anonymity. No long-term supervision. No deep psychological treatment. No constant monitoring, just a second chance. He moved into his own apartment. Apartment 213. At Oxford Apartments. In Milwaukee. To neighbors, he seemed polite, reserved, calm. Sometimes awkward. Never violent. Never threatening. But behind closed doors, his fantasies returned. Stronger than before. More organized. More planned. Later, Dahmer admitted prison had not stopped him. It only taught him to hide better. If you're following this story, subscribe to True Tales USA. Because every detail matters. In 1991, one victim managed to escape. Barely alive. In the middle of the street. And what happened next would shock the entire nation. It was May 27, 1991. Late at night. In Milwaukee. A teenage boy staggered into the street, barefoot, bleeding, disoriented, barely conscious. His name was Connor Xinthasamphone. He was only 14 years old. Two women saw him. They rushed to help. They called 911. They said, "There's a child here. He's hurt. He's confused." Police arrived. They found Connor naked, with injuries, and able to speak clearly. Something was very wrong. Then, a man walked up, calm, quiet, polite. It was Jeffrey Dahmer. He told officers, "That's my boyfriend. He drank too much. We had an argument. I'm taking him home." The officers were confused. The women protested. They begged, "Don't let him go. Something isn't right." But Dahmer remained calm. He showed them his apartment key. He answered questions politely. He acted cooperative. Police escorted them back to his apartment. Apartment 213. Inside, they noticed a strange smell. Unusual. Uncomfortable. Dahmer said it was spoiled food. They looked around briefly. They didn't search deeply. They didn't open the bedroom. They didn't check the freezer. After a few minutes, they made a decision. They left. And they left Connor with Dahmer. Minutes later, Connor was murdered. Years later, investigators confirmed this was the closest moment to stopping everything. One conversation. One decision. One missed detail. The officers later said they believed they were resolving a domestic dispute. They did not see a crime. They did not imagine danger. No one acted with bad intentions. But the consequences were permanent. After that night, Dahmer continued. For weeks. Undetected. And stopped. Invisible. If this story moved you, subscribe to True Tales USA. Because every victim deserves to be remembered. Just weeks later, police would finally enter Dahmer's apartment again. This time, they would not leave. And what they found inside would horrify the world. It was July 22, 1991. Two young men escaped from an apartment. They ran into the street. They were terrified. They told police there are handcuffs. There are photos. Something is wrong. Officers followed them. Back to apartment 213. The door was opened. Inside was Jeffrey Dahmer, calm, quiet, cooperative. Just like before. Police asked to see inside. This time, he didn't refuse. He stepped aside and let them enter. At first, nothing seemed unusual. A small living room, a couch, a TV. Dirty dishes. Empty bottles. Then, an officer opened a drawer. Inside, he found photographs. Dozens of them. They showed bodies. Dismembered. Post. Preserved. Documented. Like a collection. The officer froze. He whispered, "These are real." Dahmer tried to explain. He tried to talk. He tried to stay calm. But it was over. Police handcuffed him and began searching. Room by room. Closet by closet. In the bedroom, they found more photos. More tools. More evidence. In the refrigerator, they found human organs, preserved, stored, labeled. In the freezer, they found a human head, wrapped, hidden, and inside a blue barrel, they found acid. Used to dissolve remains. Nothing about this apartment was normal. Nothing was accidental. Everything was planned. Investigators later said it was one of the most disturbing crime scenes they had ever seen. Not because of violence, but because of organization. Dahmer had records, dates, names, photos, details. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was archiving. When questioned, he did not resist. He did not deny. He simply said, "I did it." Over the next days, he confessed to 17 murders. Across many years. Across many cities. Across many victims. Some of the victims had never been reported missing. Some families never knew what happened. Until now. If you believe these stories matter, subscribe to True Tales USA. Because every life deserves to be remembered. With the evidence uncovered and the confessions recorded, the case moved to court. But the biggest question remained: who was he really? A monster? Or a deeply broken man? After the shocking discovery in apartment 213, Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested. The nation watched. The trial began in 1992. Prosecutors presented evidence, photographs of victims, preserved body parts, detailed confessions. Every detail painted a chilling picture. Defense attorneys argued he was mentally ill. He could not control his impulses. Psychologists testified about Dahmer's disorders. The jury listened. They reviewed the facts. They heard the stories. In February 1992, Dahmer was convicted of 15 murders. Sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms. No chance of parole. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. In 1994, he was killed in prison by another inmate, ending his life, but not the story. The legacy of his crimes, families traumatized, communities shocked, society questioning, warning signs. Experts later reflected, this case is not only about a killer. It's about understanding human behavior, recognizing danger early, and remembering the victims. This is True Tales USA, where real stories are told honestly. If you learned something today, subscribe, turn on notifications, and remember, every victim has a story. Every life deserves to be remembered.